You know, you think I'd be sick of this microphone by now, but I'm just warming up. We started this off with the youth of Nanaimo proudly welcoming us to their territory. The confidence and grace that those young children had as they introduced themselves in their own language, sang their welcome songs, did their protocol. And then to have my brother, Chief John Jack from the Huu-ay-aht, mesmerize all of us for 37 minutes. You could hear a pin drop in this place. Every word he said was true. Every word he said we all needed to hear. When I was lying in the hospital last year thinking about this conference, thinking about what we could do and how good it would feel just to be continuing this discussion, I had no idea that this year would be the way that it was, is, and going to be going forward. The energy in this room, the collaborative discussions, the people that have been talking to each other both for the first time, 20th time, 100th time, is all genuine. And I'm so proud to see it all happen. I still have a couple more shifts on this microphone, so I'll save some of my ammo for later in the day. I do want to talk about the Land Act. I do want to talk about the tremendous opportunity that the Council of the Haida Nation has brought to both British Columbia and Canada. I want to talk about the fear-mongering, the political football nature that people are treating our rights and title with, that goes strictly against everything we've talked about over the last 2 days in this room. But we'll get to it. It's going to be clear, it's going to be honest, and it's going to be something we all need to hear. But without any further ado, I just want to thank someone who's grown to be a very close personal friend of mine over the years, Sheila Malcolmson. She's always been able to show up here, not just because it's her riding, but because she believes in the path that we're all going down together. So I'd like to ask my good friend, Sheila Malcolmson, Minister Malcolmson, to come up and share some words with us.
What an honor to be here. Thank you, Dallas. I remember when these rooms were pretty small compared to today. They're looking pretty cool. Now, I think I'm just going to click this and it's magically going to go to my slide. That's so great. There we go. I'm really glad to be here in Nanaimo territory, and really glad that you chose Nanaimo, the gathering place. Expect a bunch of you are staying in Nanaimo's new hotel. Isn't it so beautiful? Like, so beautiful. Super proud of Chief Wise's leadership and what that council is manifesting together in partnership. It's phenomenal. Having built the first school that I know of on reserve that's a school district school, the first MOU with BC Housing, and then tons of economic development. They're just charging so many good courses. And thank you to Elder Lawley for opening the conference up. I am going to talk about another kind of form of the resource opportunities conversation, because my assignment from Premier Eby is, as the Minister of Social Development and Poverty Reduction, I oversee all income assistance and PWD for people in British Columbia off reserve and for people up to age 65. And we're doing a lot of really good work together that's beyond what you would think of as income assistance. But I am knowing that my colleagues are talking about the more traditional definition of resources. I'm going to really focus on the human resource opportunities that we have together. I'm going to talk about the province's work to tackle poverty and food insecurity, and I'm going to talk about a lot of our shared projects on training and employment. Our commitment to reconciliation, I know my colleagues have talked about already, and it is well known, it's legislated, it's documented. I have 4 of the 89 commitments in the DRIPA action plan. They're really focused on partnerships to support Indigenous-led initiatives, invest in people, and when we build our legislation and our response to poverty across BC, that we build First Nations teachings and perspectives deeply in as a foundational document. We've been doing this work to revise. Well, when we came to government in 2017, we're the last place in the country to have a poverty reduction strategy. BC was. So we brought one in. Shane Simpson was the minister that did that. And then we legislated the requirement to build in reconciliation, the calls to action, TRC commitments, now our DRIPA legislation. And we also legislated that we'll update it every 5 years. So over the last year, we've had conversation with pretty much 10,000 people. We had a separate call to an Indigenous-led consultation, and all of those documents are online, full of powerful advice, identified actions that will bind our whole government, across government, Indigenous identified actions you're going to see in that new strategy, which will come out this spring. I want to give a big thanks to Cheryl Casimir, who sits on our Poverty Reduction Advisory Committee, and also First Nations Leadership Council, who's been really holding the pen with us on the legislation that we passed last month and really giving us fantastic guidance. This talks a little bit about some of that First Nations consultation and the ways that we've been talking with people. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that process because I really want to just talk about the outcomes, the issues that we heard from you and your communities, the concerns and conversations I've had with many of you at First Nations Leadership Gathering, and both where our legislation is heading, but also where our actions to combat poverty and lift everybody up are headed. So a huge first theme won't be a big surprise to any of you, food security. It's been a concern for a long time in many ways and for many reasons, but the impact of global inflation and the terribly increased cost of food has hit everybody hard, but especially those that were already behind and people who didn't have access to land or resources in the way that they wanted. And we also know statistically that Indigenous people have a food insecurity rate that's double the rest of the province. And so we are committed to a distinctions-based approach. We're committed to address Indigenous food security and sovereignty, which looks different from other communities. And we're also paying particular attention to access to food in rural areas. And wildfires and natural disaster, of course, have extra demand. You know, fighting a wildfire used to be, you know, the ladies from the Women's Institute would come in with sandwiches for like a week or 10 days, and that's not our situation anymore. We're really working across the province, across every ministry to make sure that people are fed and safe in some of these extended, really terrible disasters. And so we've been taking action on this, and a lot of it has been with you directly. In my ministry, since 2020, we've put over $20 million in grants, particularly through the First Nations Public Service Secretariat of the First Nations Summit. I want to give a shout out to Robert Phillips and his team. Like Robert's here, hi friend. If we send the money there, then it gets out to the communities in need the fastest and the best. And so I really appreciate the time that you've been taking to adjudicate those grants. Promoting wellness, reducing poverty, Indigenous food sovereignty, Indigenous-led food security initiatives like smokehouses and community meals and greenhouses, which I didn't know were a thing in First Nations communities, but they are. And also funding skills transfer, such a thing that we hear from young people and from elders that they really want to have that capacity building to do. We also got from my colleague, Minister Pam Alexis, Minister of Agriculture, $30 million in partnership with the New Relationship Trust for the Indigenous Food Security and Food Sovereignty Grant Program. We've also done some more local pieces, and because we're in Nanaimo, I want to brag about Loaves and Fishes, which does a super innovative food rescue, food diversion The way they talk about it, we don't have a food scarcity problem, we have a food distribution problem. And so we have funded through my ministry $7 million for them to expand their warehouse here. They will be expanding. They're already doing food delivery all over central and northern Vancouver Island, but it'll be a real focus on rural and Indigenous communities that will get more nutritious, fresh food on the table for free because of that redistribution will be amplified because of this funding. And Indigenous youth well-being, also a major focus. And again, because we're in Nanaimo, we just announced a couple of weeks ago, along with Kwame Child and Family Services Society, just hands raised to Bill Yoakum and his leadership there. On Snana's territory, we just opened with the Premier and Minister Jennifer Whiteside the Orca-Lalem Youth Wellness Center on Snana's territory, 20 beds, it'll be open in June. Addiction treatment, detox, cultural safety, culturally informed care for Indigenous youth aged 12 to 18. Deeply needed, and so grateful to those partners for stepping up to doing that life-saving work, literally life-saving work. We are also investing $16 million through my ministry through the Foundry Youth Centers. If you haven't heard about them, it's a whole other presentation. They're online, virtual counseling, and also walk-in centers. We've got them all over BC, and we're expanding them again. The most recent expansion is going to be here in Nanaimo. Nanaimo and Kwame are leading it. So grateful for that. But the human resources employment side of it is that we're doing, through my ministry, an investment in youth peer workers, knowing that people who have been there and have that lived experience, they've got the most trust and are the most able to reach, into Indigenous youth, pull them onto the path of culture, of safety, of healthcare, and they're also going to be getting trained up to be then workers in our care economy, whether that's conventional healthcare or all the different ways of defining that. More employment and training supports that we're working on together, so many of these. I would say, although my ministry is responsible for people with disabilities and income support for those who can't work or have got barriers, don't have enough, we really see the powerful medicine that employment is. People are more connected to community when they have a job. We know people, at their hearts want to provide for themselves and provide for their families and communities. And there's a real disruption when work is taken away from people. And so we're really trying to work together to build that back, to build that up. Our Work BC centers that are under my ministry, 102 of them across the province. If your members have worked with them before or tried and there wasn't really quite a great connection, I really urge you to try again. We've changed their compensation model to be able to work with people that have got more complex backgrounds, people that maybe aren't quite ready for work. And I'd also love if you kick the tires on that, let me know if it's not working for you, because these are contracted services that are renewed and reviewed. I'd love to get your feedback. They have employment counselors on staff. It's a free walk-in service. All kinds of communities. I saw the one in Masset this summer. They're very small scale in some cases. They develop tailor-made action plans for people that are looking for support in getting jobs. And if Indigenous clients prefer to work with an Indigenous employment skill service provider, then Work BC can assist with that, and Indigenous clients can take either path. So some of those programs that then the Work BC centers can connect with, and ones that in many cases my ministry's been funding directly. I'm just going to talk about a couple of these success stories. Both Daryl and Samantha, who are featured on this slide, have been able to build the futures that they wanted and get the work that they wanted. And at this time of so many job openings and a worker shortage, we really need to harness the capacity and talent that's in communities all over BC. Klahoose First Nation and Tanaha both worked with us on these projects. In both cases, real in-demand jobs were filled. We're training more early childhood educators in Samantha's case, and heavy equipment operators in Daryl's case. And just, again, hands raised to Indigenous organizations that are doing this training and working in partnership with us. We're funding it, but it's being delivered on the ground and in response to local needs, both the client's need and then also the employer's need. On this slide, Joseph is another great example of how collaboration can make a big difference. Joseph was laid off from his job in forestry. He wanted to switch to mining. He partnered with Nisga'a Nation to help get his heavy equipment operator certification. He also got support through Work BC with resume and cover letter writing. Our Work BC staff helped him find the job as a heavy equipment operator, which he found in the mining industry. We also funded financial supports for him so he was able to purchase the equipment and clothing that was appropriate for him in order to get that job. So just by Joseph's story, just hope you can really kind of have that picture of how we can help people at a whole bunch of the places on their continuum to getting that job that they wanted. Last year, we funded 3 strategic initiative grants that had also really big impact on helping people meet the labor market challenges of Indigenous people. This included things like cultural recognition in the workplace, Indigenous job fairs, Indigenous public sector recruitment, retention, and training. We're doing that with First Nations Public Service Secretariat, again, thanks to Robert and his team. Really, and this is also one of our DRIPA action plan commitments, is to fund First Nation governments to implement their inherent right of self-determination by helping to support the training that they need for the administrative staff, the CEOs, their operational people that can take on those increasing governmental responsibilities and participate more deeply and professionally, totally rooted in Indigenous people, hiring Indigenous people to do that work in community. Skills training and certifications in the tourism industry were another one of the projects too that we took on through Indigenous Tourism BC. And then we've also been working with employers and trainers directly, funded 6 projects with Indigenous people on Central and Northern Vancouver Island last year with skills training and work experience for up to 44 Indigenous people. 6 in Dididat Nation got training and work experience building cabins that Dididat will use as vacation rentals. 4 people in Mill Bay got safety certifications and work experience, skilled labor certification as part of the installation of solar power project. 8 people in Ladysmith and Powell River got heavy equipment operator operations training and work experience in forestry, land development, demolition, mining, landscaping. Cobble Hill, Duncan, Ladysmith, Lake Cowichan, Victoria. 2 people got work experience on doing market surveys, research and analysis around food resiliency, warehousing work. Again, you can see all these skills connect into so many other areas of employment. 12 people in Duncan got training as security guards. 12 people in Campbell River got work experience and training in the construction industry around being traffic controllers and other things. And all these projects included a grief and healing, trauma-informed element to make sure that people end up better than they started. And I'll just leave you with this final slide. We're doing some really powerful work with Community Living BC, which works with adults with developmental disabilities. This is a signing ceremony with the Chouettemec Child and Family Services, first in the country, maybe the first in North America, where we're binding together youth in care and then what care they will get in community for their whole lives. Again, there's huge thanks to the communities that are leading this work, are teaching the province how to care for people better. And we're doing that in partnership. We're committed to doing that work for those human resource opportunities. Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm as honored to be standing with you. Wish you the best the rest of your time in Nanaimo territory here. Thank you, friends.
Well, thank you so much, Minister Malcolmson. On behalf of IROC and Nan we'll just get a quick photo with a speaker gift.